Hello, life changers, and welcome back to the Transition Puzzle. Today, we have a new topic and a new guest for you. Our guest today is Kimberly Caldwell, and our topic today is navigating the transition of raising readers for life. So, first off, let me tell you a little bit about Kimberly. So, Kimberly Caldwell was literally born into education, having a father who was a history teacher and coach, and a mother who was an elementary school teacher. So her family joke is that she is an educator by birth and a consultant by choice. She earned a bachelor's and a master's degree from the University of Houston, go Cougs, in psychology and curriculum and instruction, respectively. She is Texas Certified Reading Specialist, Administrator, and English as a Second Language Specialist. She has served in numerous capacities in the field of education for almost 30 years. This includes teaching from elementary to college, training educators throughout the United States. She is a wife of almost 25 years. She is the mother of an 18 and 14-year-old, and they currently reside in Southern Louisiana. All right, Kim. So I read your bio, but go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the bio so we can start getting to know you, and then we will move into the interview. So, Kimberly, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Pamela. I am glad to be here with you. I am a native Texan, born and raised in Houston, Texas, where I went to public schools. And as you said in the introductions, was a child of two educators. And I also have an older sister and a younger sister who also spent time in education as well. So at one point, we all were surrounded by education. And I have been working in consulting with educators for, I guess, the past maybe almost 20 years now, where I've worked with different educational companies. And then I've also owned my own business where I provided consulting services to teachers, as well as we provided tutoring services for students as well. So everything that I've done has been pretty much in the realm of education. I tried to run from it by getting a degree in psychology, and then it just reeled me right back on in, because once you're born an educator, there's nothing else that you know how to do but educate. So, that's a little bit about me. And we adopted a puppy during our shutdown. So that's been the new task of the family, is orienting towards having another member of the family that doesn't listen and does its own thing. So that's where we are now.
All right. So, yes, it sounds like your family is nothing but educators, but that is so cool. So, let's talk about this topic because it's a very interesting topic. Navigating the transition of raising readers for life. And I love this topic because when you say readers for life, meaning, yes, when we were in school, we were pushed to read, but then when we become an adult, it's like we just fall off. And so I know I'm a reader, and it's like being exposed to different things through reading just broadens how you see the world. But yours is raising readers for life. So talk to me, how did you come up with this topic, raising readers for life? Why is that an important thing?
It is such an important topic. One, because you can't learn anything unless you know how to read that thing. No matter what it is that you do in life, you have to have those skills in order to comprehend what it is that you're expected to do or what you need to learn about it. I often talk to students that always think that they're going to be the next LeBron James or the next, whoever the top football player is or soccer player. And then I have friends in the industry that I ask, can you give me a contract, an NFL contract or an NBA contract? And I write out the name of the player, and I share it with these high school students that are like, I'm going pro. I don't need, all of this. And I say, read this and tell me what this is. And they look at it a little bit and say, it looks like a for a ball player or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it's a contract. And they're like, wow, they make a lot of money. I said, yeah, but do you see how much money that they get fined when they don't do certain things? Do you see what percentage they lose by having all these people in their camp doing things for them? And many times they have a hard time trying to digest what that contract says. And I said, that's the reason why reading is a skill you have to own for life. Is because no matter what you do, yeah, you can hire people to help you out. But if you don't know what's going on, that's how people steal from you. That's how people cheat you and all those things. One of the things that I grew up with was a house full of books. Having parents that were educators, we had books around all the time. And I always thought it was secrets in the books. So I wanted to go and sit underneath something and see what was in those books. I remember getting in trouble in middle school, sneaking into the building before the bell rang for the morning to get to the library because we weren't allowed in the building before the bell rang. And I would get in trouble literally every other day. And eventually they were like, you know what? Just let her sit in the library. She's not bothering anyone, because I wanted to be around the books. So when I had children, I thought, how can I foster this love of reading in my own children the way I've done in classrooms when I taught reading to middle school students, to elementary students, to college students. And one of the things was, of course, surrounding them with books as babies, reading to them, even when they were in utero, reading. So they were hearing my voice, hearing the rhythm of the language, and just exposing them to all kinds of text. And then eventually they knew life of having their own library in their rooms when they were toddlers, and always reaching for books, whether they were in the mouths or whatever, it didn't matter, because they were being exposed to those books. The more they were exposed to books, the more they took ownership of them. And then even just going to things like book fairs and the libraries where, of course, the free books are available for you to check out. So doing those field trips, if you will. And then I thought about it last week when I took my 18 and 14-year-old to the library for the first time since we are moving them out and about again. And neither one of them could close their bag or carry it on their shoulders because they had so many books just piling out of their bags. And most people think, now with technology being as it is, you have your e-readers and all of that. My children still love to touch and feel and dog ear those books. And it's because of the exposure and the love that was instilled early on. So I think it's such an important topic, and I think it's an easy thing that we can do. Sometimes as parents or as educators, we think that it requires money. It requires modeling, and modeling is free, so that's the reason why I think this topic is so crucial, because you can go so far beyond wildest dreams with reading.
Oh, yes. I agree with you, because when I was younger, even today, I love to read. And it's like when you read, you see something through someone else's eyes. You get their perspectives. You can read about other cultures, other ways of how people do stuff, and then you can compare it to your own. So I think it's just really educated you. And so I love to hear parents out there that are raising readers. But from what I hear, it's not just raising readers, it is being a reader yourself, because you talked about modeling. So showing them what reading and how reading can affect you. So they're not just hearing it, they see it as well. And I love, because sometimes I think we don't model enough of what we say. We say it, but we don't do it. And so there's a disconnect. And so tell us, you have shared some of the things you did when they were younger, but then being 18 and 14, are you still modeling that love for reading so they can see it as well?
And it's so much so. I mean, when we plan our family vacations, it's like, okay, where are we going? Research. So we have to read, and everybody has to bring to the table what they found about the place that they want to go and why. And then we also center our vacations around some kind of educational opportunity. When we got an opportunity to go to Hawaii, for example, I arranged a tour where they were going to learn about the volcano that is active on the island that we were in. And it required them doing some research, finding out how long it's been there, when it's planning to erupt the next time, and what's going to happen as a result, and all of that. And once we got to the top of the mountain to actually see it happening, everything on that cliff were plaques and signs that had to be read in order to understand where we were, what we were doing, and for what reason. And so, you know, one thing about my family is that they see how reading is an integral part of everything that you do. My 14-year-old, even to this day, when we're driving in the car, he will shout out different things that he's reading as the car is moving, you know, whether it's signs, billboards, or whatever. And because sometimes I'm driving a little fast, I don't see what he's saying, but he's, you know, saying, I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, that sign back there. You know, because of the fact that environmental print, that's the first sign that we get of children noticing what's going on. And sometimes parents say, oh, my baby's reading. They said Burger King or they said McDonald's. And it's actually the symbol that they notice, and then they know what word connects to it. But that is a part of learning to read, environmental print. And it is everywhere. It is everywhere. When we travel internationally, that's one of the things that we compare is how their street signs are written, if they have them, how they're located, what signs are on the building. Because my children took Latin, when we were in Rome, there were some buildings that had Latin phrases on them. I had no clue. Both of my kids, oh, that says blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, go figure. It did work, because I'm just thinking for vocabulary purposes and SAT prep and all of that, that's what Latin is, you know, really good for. But no, they were able to read the buildings and different signs when we were in the cathedrals and things. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. So, you know, when you get an opportunity to lose yourself in a book, and you know, you mentioned about reading and following other people's lives. I know I like the genre of biographies. I love to read about other people's business and what happened with them and all of that. That's my jam. I like that. But my children are total opposites. My oldest is into Japanese culture and all things anime, all things, you know, that they have to present, even trying to learn the characters. So when they're reading these manga and they're reading it backwards, and I'm like, okay, that's, you know, they're doing exactly how you would do when you have a Japanese text. And it's really cool, and it's something I never would have expected. So they've definitely gone beyond what I even thought, because, you know, I'm just thinking, oh, we're reading in English and we're reading the books from, you know, cover to cover like we normally do. And they've been teaching me a lot by what they're interested in as well.
Okay. Yes, I like biographies as well. But with biographies, I like to do the audio, but I want the person to read it. I want them to read their own book. That's the part I love. If you know, and then with audio, if I don't like the person's voice, no, I can't. No, it's like, because that voice gotta match the story. And so, and if it doesn't, I'll be like, no, I don't like it. And I love series, and they have the same person reading each book in the series. Oh yeah. So I love readers. Anime, I don't know nothing about anime. I think it's cool because I'm in China and they do anime. I think it's cool. I don't get it, but it's cool. So I said, okay. And so you mentioned within that reading, they had taken a foreign language. And so I do believe reading the foreign language is all tied together. So within raising readers, are you also encouraging them to learn a foreign language as well?
Most definitely. One of the things that I find so surprising about America in general is that we're very monolingual. And when you go abroad, English is one of the languages they learn on top of the language that they currently speak wherever they are. And then depending on where you are, they may have multiple dialects. I know when we went to South Africa, I think there were 7 or 8 different dialects that we experienced just within one day, you know, with learning the different bases of different tribes and things like that. And some of the languages are being lost because as generations are coming up, they're like, you know, don't want to learn that, or kind of pushing it away because English is where they're going. But it's like, to listen to it, the beauty of languages is just something that has always fascinated me, even though I was never really, really good at it. But growing up in Texas, Spanish was the language that you pretty much take no matter what, whether in middle school or high school, as your foreign language. Spanish is usually the first option. And I remember being in college at University of Houston and taking Spanish, and it was a different type of Spanish than I had been exposed to previously. And it was very difficult, but one of the things that was a challenge was we were told by the professor to watch novelas, so Spanish soap operas, and then to read Spanish novels. Now, if I tell you the Spanish soap operas, they are the best. Talk about Real Housewives before Real Housewives even existed. And so that's what helped me develop the language. And then reading it, I was able to read and interpret. The speaking, totally lost, because I didn't have anybody to practice with. So one thing that I noticed with my children is that they will try reading different things, and then they'll pick up things, but then they also learn it through songs. And I mean, if you think about it, the first song that most children learn, if it's not, you know, some kind of nursery rhyme, it's the alphabet song. And it's because of the rhythm of the language. It's not so much of the letters themselves. So anything to me that has a rhythm or a rhyme to it, that's how the young children can process it. And that's what reading is to me. It's just rhythm into what it is, especially if you're reading orally. And when I taught middle school, I read out loud to my students on a weekly basis, and they would sit and listen to me like they were kindergartners, because they had not heard that in so long by the time they were 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But then they realized that they did yearn for hearing the language like that, because I would do the voices and the characters. And so we had a great time. So I knew that if I could teach students who didn't think they liked how to read, I knew that I can definitely do the same for my children. But thankfully they love reading, so I hadn't had to fight with them. So that's
yes,
a good fight.
that's good. And you mentioned about the language. Yes, since I live abroad, I don't, and individuals that are outside of the US, they speak at least 2 languages fluently. And I'm so impressed, because now I am residing in China. So now in my 40s, I'm trying to learn Mandarin. Mandarin is a hard language, because you got to learn the letters, you got to learn the characters, you be like, and the tone, you know. But I'm learning, and I'm trying to hold my own. But it's taking the time and putting the energy into learning. It has really helped me understand, learn their culture. It helps me learn how, there's other languages, but there also are similarities,
right,
of how we do things. So I think it's very interesting. Languages isn't my thing. I can read, I can listen. Speaking is like the last thing, but I'm trying to force myself to speak. I think I do know more because I listen to songs, and I was like, oh, I get what that song is about. And so, I think, yes, we're talking about readers, but language is closely related. And so what I'm hearing when you say raising readers for life is like, And I mentioned this before, it's not just telling them to be a reader, it's modeling that behavior, and not just modeling it for when they're younger, maybe 2, 3, or 5, 6, is modeling that continuously. So they will learn that reading is not just for the school age, it's for adults too. As adults, you could read something and learn. So you're not only a reader for life, you're a learner for life. And I love this. So they're at 18 and 14. So, one is about at that age, she may be going off to college. The other one is at that age. So what are you doing now to continue to teach them how to continue to have this when they're not around you, when they're not in your household? What are you doing now to prepare them for that time?
One of the things is, really, like you said, with modeling and then accessibility, because making sure that they have library cards. Library cards are free. And it's amazing to me when people say, oh, I haven't had one in years. And I'm like, whew. It's a free opportunity. They do have videos now, and other things, not just books, but it's an opportunity where you just have a plethora of things at your fingertip that you can borrow for a little while, and experience different things. And then also when the shutdown started happening, all of a sudden cooking became a thing for the family. And so reading recipes and researching, okay, what do you want to try today? What are we going to try? Are we going to try a dessert? Are we going to try an appetizer or whatever? And making them research and actually look up what we're going to do. Looking at different meal services to see, let's try something that we've never tried before. I also hold my kids accountable. If we're going to order something out, then you need to find the menu, look at it, and figure out what you want. I don't do, okay, giving directions and all that. You have to figure it out. Same with new phones. When they wanted a new phone, research what kind of phone would work for our household and what you need. And then you have to learn how to use it. You read the manual, figure it out and all that. So really holding them accountable for the process of reading for a reason, for a function, to learn some information, as you said before. But then also reading for enjoyment. One of the things that when I work with teachers that I love to say is, when you go home in the evening and you get a final moment to yourself to read for enjoyment, do you pick up a worksheet? And it's like, why would I pick up a worksheet, a handout, or some kind of piece of paper? I'd get a magazine or a book or my e-reader or whatever. And exactly, and I said, we have to make sure that we model for students why and how you read for enjoyment, so they don't think reading is only something I do in this classroom. Once that bell rings, I close that book and reading is over. So I used to do commercials for books and would just share like the meaty parts of it, and sometimes would exaggerate that something happened, disastrous, and then would say, I wonder if they're going to make it, and just put it down. Everybody wanted to check out that book because they wanted to see what was going to happen, or if they broke a leg, or whatever the situation would be. So you really have to tap into the interest of the child, the student, whoever it is that you're trying to promote reading for. So I know how my kids are with manga and the anime and all of the Japanese culture. So we get on websites where they sell these sets for cheaper, and you want a set, get a set, and after they both read them and go through them, then we resell them. So it gives opportunity to bring in something new and just keep the cycle going. But as I've said before, the library cards, that's a win-win, because libraries want people to come in to keep the people employed that are there, and then it's free. You really can't beat free. You just can't.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned the library card, because the last time I was at the US, I did get a library card, and everything is electronic, but I can still use it even living here in China to get my books, to get my audio, and keep up with the readings, because there's some authors that, I'm just waiting for them to come out with a new book. Because I'm the one, I love series. I be trying to read the individual books, but they don't do it for me. I need series, and I need, it's a lawyer, they either work for the FBI, CIA, something secretive, or it's about a serial killer, because those are the stories, and that's the stories I love. And I have all these series that I'm trying to keep up with. And so talking about readers, if you're a reader for life, you have a favorite author. Who is your favorite author?
It's so weird because most of my favorite authors are actually children or young adult or young adolescent authors. But as an adult, Terry McMillan, I've always loved how she creates her stories, and when she makes her stories, you can see yourself in the book. And that's always important for me, to be connected to something. When I read something and I can't see myself acting like one of the characters or being something like a friend or a best friend of a character or something, it's hard for me to connect with it and to finish it. I have started millions of books and have not finished a lot of those books because I do what I call the 5-finger tribe. I used to stick my hand in the book, and when I would get to a certain part in the book, if I still was a little bit intrigued, I keep going until I got to where my finger was next. And then if I was not, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it one more. But if I wasn't intrigued or connected by the time I was midway through my hand, I was done. I'm sitting it down. I may come back to it later, because sometimes later in life, your view changes, and then what you're interested in changes, and then you'll start that kind of genre or whatever. Because I've never been into like sci-fi or anything like that as to read, but I will watch like the Star Wars or Planet of the Apes and all those things. But to read it, it's like, no, not interested. But once again, if I can get in the book and I see myself as a character, it's like, oh yeah, this is for me. And I binge read, like you were talking about the series and how people binge watch, shows on different networks. I binge read where I can't go to sleep until I'm done. And so that's the hard part, is making the time when I get a book that I really like that, because I can't put it down and I have to get to the end. The one thing I don't like is when books don't have conclusions. I do not like when I have to put an end to it because there's not a nice little bow to wrap up that book. So I don't like that. And I'm the same way with movies as well. But I try not to put my likes and my dislikes onto my kids. So, because I noticed my youngest, he loves when he can write the own story, because he has a million stories in his head in the first place. So when he's reading, he interjects like he wrote the book and is changing it all around. I'm like, what does it say that character did that? Oh, he would have, so I know that he's not the same as me in what he likes and how a book is wrapped up. And that's totally fine, because you definitely want them to have their own relationship with the book and with the genres, because whatever they like, it will eventually fall in their lap, and that will be what they like. But I mean, I can't even tell you how much money I've spent on books, like at book fairs and things like that, that they wanted to have, begged me for. And then I found it on the floor and I'm like, did you read that book? It wasn't that interesting. And I'm thinking, that's why you should have gotten it from the library, because it would have been free to try it out, not $9.95 or whatever the case may be. But once again, the love of books is definitely in our household, and I promote it, I support it, and I think I spend more on books than I do on clothes, because they wore uniforms. So, I didn't have to worry about it as much. But yeah, we spend a lot on books, and it's because of, gotta have it, want my own copy, kind of situation.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we went over your favorite author. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, my current favorite book. Oh, wow. I think it's Cicely Tyson's biography. I got it earlier this year, and she wrote it and finished it before she passed away. I think it was released a month before she passed away, so she was able to see it to fruition.
Oh,
But I love biographies, as I said, but her life is amazing. I mean, she lived to be, in her late 90s, but the life she had, not just as an actress, but an activist, as a person of color that was told that, oh, you're not going to be anything, you're not worth anything, look how you look, and, all those things. And to have had relationships with these high profile men that were in the entertainment industry and in the music industry, that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So, it's spicy, but it's educational. And it's, to me, it's just an honor to read about her life, knowing that she poured it out finally before she took her last breath. I mean, it kind of gives me chills to know that I'm connected to her in that way. So right now, that's my favorite. Yeah.
okay. Well, I think you enticed me to go get that book and read it because I do love a good biography too. All right. So we're about to come to an end. So tell us, for the parents out there watching, or even just anyone that has children, sisters, brothers, anyone younger, even for themselves, that they want to begin navigating this transition to being a reader for life, not just raising them, but being a reader for life. Give us, like, what are 3 things that they can start doing now in order to begin this journey?
All right. First thing is, find a place that's going to be your place. What I mean by that is, if you like nature, like being outside, on the rocking chair or the bench or whatever, then that's your place, and have a book with you. And, whether it's a physical book, electronic book, or, even magazines, sometimes magazines are underrated. But there's some magazines out there that give you a lot of information, whether you're looking for, recipes or how-tos or whatever. There's just all kinds of different texts that are available out there that, of course, you can get electronically or in print. And take that with you when you're in your spot. Because if you're in a spot that's your happy place, and you're experiencing reading, then 9 times out of 10, you won't have a negative reaction to reading if that's something that you struggled with maybe back in the day in school, or maybe reading wasn't fun for you or was never presented as a fun thing to do. Then that will give you an opportunity to do it in a arena that's comfortable for you, or that is, once again, your happy place. So find a place. 2, never leave home without something to read. You never know when you're going to be inconvenienced, when you have to be in a line, when you have to be in a waiting room, when you have to be in back-to-back traffic that's not going anywhere. Just all the different situations, in the carpool line to pick up your kids from school. I mean, I've sat in that thing sometimes 30, 45 minutes because the police didn't show up to help with traffic that day. So nobody knew what to do. So we were all just sitting and looking at each other. So always have something with you, either in the car, in your bag, your purse. If you're, once again, doing it electronically, you can download it on your phone, so it's in your pocket, but always have something ready to go.
Okay.
So that's number 2. And then number 3, be okay with failing at reading. And what I mean by that is, try different types of things to read. And if you don't like it, okay, put it down and try something else. But don't let the failure to connect to what you're trying to read determine whether or not you're going to become a reader or want to continue reading. Allow the failure to be, for that moment, you know what, this is not the genre I like, or this is what I like. You may find that you like poetry. Some people just kind of discount poetry because it's not something you hear about a lot. But spoken word, a spoken word artist won America's Got Talent last season. So he won, I think they win like $1 million or something crazy. So he won that doing spoken word. That's poetry, you know? So never fear that it's something that you can't connect with, because it's out there. You just have to sometimes just search for it or fail at things in order to find what you like.
All right, thank you for that. And one last thing, so if someone wants to connect with you, maybe this topic interested with them, so how can they connect with you if they have more connections or just want to follow you on social media?
I'm on social media. I'm KR Caldwell on Facebook. So just KR Caldwell on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Princess First Wife on Instagram. And there's a story behind that. And some of you may know what it is. And if you don't, reach out and ask me about it. I'll share it with you. And then, so either one of those are the only two that I pretty much keep up with, because it's more than I have time to do. But you can definitely reach out to me on either one. And if you need some tricks, some tips, anything like that, be more than happy to share.
All right, and I will also put them in there. They will be in the comments as well for you to look at them and find her that way. So again, Kimberly Caldwell, thank you for being our guest on the transition puzzle. I love this topic, navigating the transition of raising readers for life. I love the topic. I love the things that you have shared with us today. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Life Changers, for being with us for another episode of The Transition Puzzle. Until next time, just know I am my greatest me, becoming, being, sustaining. Saijan, bye.